Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this women-centered webinar series that will provide you with the tips and advice for setting your engineering or supply chain career path on the right track. I'm Jem Punarola, one of GE Aerospace's quality leaders in supply chain and manufacturing, and I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel event. If you joined us during webinar 1, you learned about a day in the life. For this webinar, we're digging deeper and talking more about the cultural aspects of working at GE Aerospace as a woman in engineering and supply chain. This webinar will focus on work-life balance, community, and tips and tricks on how to empower yourself in challenging environments. We'll have time at the end for Q&A, so I encourage you to head to slido.com and use your code TAKEFLIGHT2 or scan the QR code in the top right to ask a question of your own or vote on the questions that you like the most. But before we dig in, I wanted to give you a quick overview of who we are as a company. We want to go, there you go. At GE Aerospace, we believe the world works better when it flies. We are the world-leading provider of jet engines, components, and integrated systems for commercial and military aircraft. Our rich history of inventing the future of flight, our continual investment in research and development, and our talented and innovative people will enable us to rise to the challenge of building a world that works with industry-leading technology and innovation. Our mission statement is what you see. We invent the future of flight, lift people up, and bring them home safely. And we are everywhere. Every time I look at these stats, I just get goosebumps because we're truly flying people around the world. It's a huge responsibility and one that motivates us to come to work every day and do what we do. Think about it. Every 2 seconds, an aircraft takes off with GE technology on it. 3 out of 4 takeoffs are powered by GE technology. And at any given time, there are 900,000 people being powered by GE technology. That's crazy. I remember last fall when my family was taking a vacation to Texas, and we flew from New Hampshire to Texas. And the 9 people closest to me in the world were on that plane powered by GE powered engines. And I couldn't have been more proud of what I do at work. And on top of that, we're building a safe and more sustainable future of flight. We're developing and maturing technology solutions to reduce aircraft and engine emissions with ambitions to be net zero by 2050, partnering globally to shape and contribute the industry dialogue and actions in sustainability. And we have operational commitment to accelerate efforts to achieve carbon neutrality for our facilities by 2030. And it's not just about the technology. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without our diverse, inclusive, and committed employee base. Our culture is purpose-driven. We value each other in humility, transparency, and focus. We respect and celebrate diversity. We create an environment where we lift each other up, and we invest in ourselves and each other through the career growth and myriad of learning opportunities. This webinar series is part of a culture we have created and want to continue to improve, and I hope you'll feel the sense of all the characteristics as you meet and listen to our incredible panel of early to mid-career women in engineering and supply chain. So let's learn a little bit about each other. Starting with myself, I mentioned I'm Jen. I'm a quality leader in the rotating parts and compressor airfoils family. I started my career with GE 21 years ago on one of our leadership programs, the Edison Engineering Program, and stuck into traditional engineering for the first 8 years of my career, where I got the sense that I wanted to do something a little bit different, jumped down to the shop floor in manufacturing and took on a bunch of different quality and operational type roles, where it took me to Italy to work there for a year, as well as South Carolina, and then back up to Lynn, Massachusetts, where I came back as a quality leader in the facilities there, and ultimately bringing me to a part family quality leader role where I get to go across 8 different sites globally and impact the quality of our parts. I'm an avid traveler, love to bake, and you'll always catch me lifting weights in the gym. So with that, I'd love to introduce you to our first panelist. Kia, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. My name is Kia Rodriguez. I'm based out of the Clearwater site here in Florida. I got into GE through the Edison program, so I had 3 rotations. First starting me off in Grand Rapids in the aviation systems, in the Navigator group, and then I came down to Florida to have my last 2 rotations, and it was my last rotation in which I rolled off into what is my current role, which is a lead tools engineer. For fun, I like to cook. I like to travel. I've been getting into salsa classes, but more recently, it's just been like hanging out with my family, recuperating from the hurricanes, and just going on walks.
Hi, my name is Luisa Barco. I'm from Miami, Florida originally, but I attended Tufts University in Boston, where I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And this is my second year at GE right now. My first role was in design, and right now I'm a lead product support engineer. And for fun, I really like rock climbing. There's some really great rock climbing here in Cincinnati, in Kentucky. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Molly Triplett. I graduated in 2022 from The Ohio State University and started at GE in June of 2022. I started at GE in the Manufacturing Engineering Development Program. So that's a 2-year rotational program. I did 2 different year-long roles, focusing on marine and industrial production assembly. And now I've rolled off into my off-program role where I'm the quality leader for production assembly. And in my free time, I enjoy baking, skiing, and watching football.
Hi, every Hi everyone. My name is Aaliyah, and for 6 years now, I went to the University of Cincinnati, where I got my degree in accounting and operations management. During that time, when I did co-ops in undergrad at GE, I fell in love with the supply chain and pursued my full-time opportunity with GE via the operations management leadership program. And then essentially a few years later, I find myself actually taking a bubble to run the program. So doing program management now, developing people, coaching, and all the fun things. I love to dance and anything artsy outside of work. I also love to travel. I'm actually in the Dominican Republic taking this call right now. So happy to speak with y'all today.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to move to our panel questions. And what we're going to do is we have some preset questions ahead of time, and I encourage you to go to slido.com and enter the code TAKEFLIGHT2, because it will be an opportunity for you to enter your questions that we will go to next. So we're going to start first with a question for everybody on the panel. Reflecting on however long you've been working since graduation, what has been your biggest learning or aha moment in empowering yourself at work? So I'm going to kick it to Luisa first. You want to answer?
Yeah, I would say probably my biggest aha moment was when I was in a Kaizen, which is something that we do here. It's basically like a sprint where you try to figure out an issue within a week. And my biggest aha moment was kind of just like maybe I coming in young, like I don't know everything or a lot, honestly, about what's going on in the company, but just that, I have good ideas and having that outsider's perspective of not necessarily understanding the process the whole way still makes you a very valuable team player, when it comes to actually trying to improve a process. So yeah, probably that's my biggest aha moment of just, yeah, my voice matters and I have good ideas sometimes.
Awesome. Thanks. Kia.
Yeah, I would say my aha moment was finding a mentor through just expressing ideas and kind of skill sets that I wanted to grow. It was during my last Edison rotation where I was trying to find a role where I was, just talking to my Edison manager and talking to other managers when I'm trying to pick a role, like, oh, these are my interests, this is what I like to do. And luckily, when I was working on my team, I had the skill sets that they were looking for, and it's kind of like specialized with some cybersecurity background. It was something that not a lot of people have at the time. And it was kind of nice where people were just telling me, oh, just talk to them, see what happens. You don't know what doors will open for you. And a door opened and I walked right through. So it was really nice. That was my aha moment.
I love those doors. Awesome. Molly, why don't you give it a go?
Yeah, so my biggest aha moment, similar to Louisa, is really realizing that you need to make yourself heard and not be afraid if you're new on the team to share your ideas, share things that are important to you or that you think needs to be done in your certain area. I've learned that in a lot of jobs, and don't be afraid to take it to the next level if you feel you're not being heard, because a lot of times you need that higher level support to really get your ideas across.
Awesome. And then finally, Aaliyah.
Yeah, so when I think about my aha moment, it happened actually pretty early in my career. So my very first co-op, I was trying to understand the corporate environment. I also was doing more so like an accounting co-op. So I tried to get experiences for both sides of my majors to figure out what I wanted to do. And obviously there were some personalities that were like a little bit more like cut and dry and really conflicted with mine, where I'm like more bubbly and more just like outgoing and lively. And sometimes I felt that my personality should be almost dimmed down to kind of conform and make other people comfortable, just because that's the atmosphere that folks are used to. And at the end of the co-op experience, my manager's manager actually got me a book called Shine, and she was just like, don't let anyone like dim your light, like be authentically yourself, and that'll really take you far. And so from that I was like, okay, that's huge to tell someone like really, really early on in their career, just so they don't get to a point where they're masking all the time. And so really understanding your uniqueness and bringing that with you throughout your career.
I love that. I'm going to go find that book because that is something I love to live by as well. Thank you, Aaliyah. So for our first individual question, we're going to go to Kia. What role does networking play in advancing your career and navigating challenges in the engineering or supply chain fields?
That's a good question. I will say it's very important. It's kind of like what I mentioned. I found a mentor. It got me to the position that I have now. And just like from the start, I've never interned for GE, and historically, a lot of people that come into the rotational programs may have had an internship at GE. So first coming in very fresh, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know organizations. I didn't know what groups were there. And it was my Edison manager at the time that encouraged me, like, hey, try to connect with people, try to find the areas that you really are interested in. And I kind of leaned on my Edison friends that had been there for so long and interned through rotations, just expressing to them like, oh, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And coming out of college, I had 2 degrees and both of them very different. So I was like, how do I narrow this down to what I really want? So, it allowed me and opened myself up to talking to managers and doing what we call here get to knows. So I did a lot of get to knows just to try to understand, what is the organization, where do I fit in this organization? And that's kind of where that brought me to the Sim and Tools group, and kind of also opened the door to find my unofficial official mentor, to just, speak with him, pick his mind, ask him what trainings or certificates I should be getting into. And, it's just being open to getting to know people and getting to understand where they're coming from, their backgrounds. Everyone has a story they want to tell, and people are very open to talking about themselves. So, just having that openness and being able to use that to kind of leverage where you take yourself in your career, I think it's very important. And, just to get comfortable in getting to know people, I think is the key.
Awesome. Thank you. Molly, how do you maintain work-life balance in a demanding professions like engineering and supply chain?
Yeah, so I have found that sort of balancing work and home life really comes down to a lot of self-discipline. I feel like, especially in today's society where everything is so interconnected, everybody has cell phones, or you're constantly getting emails and Teams messages and all that. It's really easy when you're not at work to be like, let me just respond to this really quick. Let me just do this really quick. And I think if you live in that idea forever, then you're suddenly at work all the time. So really working within yourself to set those boundaries and say, okay, when I'm not at work or when it's past this time, I'm not even going to look at my phone, or I'm going to put in an out of office notification to people and let them know that I'm not responding during these specific times. And I think that really helps kind of draw the line when we're really in a very interconnected world in this day and age.
Absolutely. I know I found myself having to make sure my work phone didn't go into my bedroom at night. So those boundaries are very important. All right, Aaliyah, you may have noticed differences in leadership styles or approaches by people with different backgrounds or upbringings in engineering and supply chain. How do you believe diversity in leadership can positively impact the industry?
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking of a question. So I would love to just say, like, diversity in leadership is super important because not everyone is the same, and so what motivates people it varies person to person. And so actually during OMLP, when I was in my coach role, so for those on the call who aren't familiar, essentially one of the rotations that you do during the operations management leadership program is you are a direct supervisor over maybe like 5 to up to maybe 40 or 50 people, and understanding how to coach and empower them. Really, like, the first step is just getting to know that person and creating relationships. And so during that coach role, I was actually able to take one of the like the leadership trainings that was a part of the curriculum, and I learned about social styles and like what mine was and what all the others are, what it meant for me and others when it came to work and communication. And kind of going back to aha, I mean, it was a really big aha when it came to, you know, you might have to adjust how you lead based on the person who you're trying to lead, by understanding what motivates them, what their goals are, etc. And so throughout my time on program, I experienced different leaders, but that didn't mean that I had to emulate, one person or one specific style. I really kind of thought about my own style and how I wanted to maybe take best practices from certain leaders, or maybe I saw things that, I definitely didn't want to replicate. And so kind of taking that spin on what my unique leadership style is, and knowing that that's probably happening for everyone, and especially those who are people leaders in our business. And so it really looks different person to person, but I think that that's big when we talk about diversifying our workplace. There has to be a diversity in leadership and approaches if we think about our big focus on respect for people. So there's just my thoughts.
Absolutely. And just want to remind everybody in attendance, go to slido.com to with the code TakeFlight2 to enter any questions. We have one more question before we're going to switch over to that. So make sure you're voting for the question you want answered or putting in your own. So Louisa, have you ever had to navigate imposter syndrome or self-doubt in your career? How have you overcome these feelings and built confidence in your abilities?
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Someone called on my other phone and like knocked out my headphone. The answer is yeah. I've experienced imposter syndrome. I think like the way that I honestly manage it is just that when I think like it definitely like when I first went to college and then again coming to GE, like I experienced it. But like when I was in college and like the first couple of months I was at GE, I think the biggest thing is like when you start learning about other people and you start like creating these like perceptions of like, oh, they're smarter than me, or like, oh, they've done so many more things than me. You need to just like take a step back and be like, yes, maybe you might feel that they're smarter than you. Maybe you might feel that they've done more than you, but look at where it's gotten them. It's gotten them to the exact same spot that you are. So it's like, not, yeah. So I think like, because imposter syndrome and like not feeling adequate enough like comes up a lot whenever you're like insecure. But I think just like remembering that it's like, okay, like you might think that they're better than you, but they're in the exact same spot, and just like keeping that in your mind and just like, I'm clearly here for a reason. I clearly have some skills that they don't have, and just recognizing that this is a feeling that everyone experiences has really just been my saving grace for like, you know, keeping my head up and keep pushing through.
Absolutely. I also think it's really important to remember you don't have to be perfect, right?
Mhm.
Everybody asks for help. I always joke with people, I don't know how to have to do things. I have to know who to talk to learn how to do it, right? So thank you very much for that, Louisa. All right, so we're
Definitely.
gonna move into the Slido questions. Get those brought up. Okay, so our first question from Erica. For Kia, as someone with a BS and MS in EE, how much of your coursework would you say applies to the work you do? And do you have elective recs, I think?
Okay. Yeah. So actually my BS, so I have two BSs. So I have computer engineering and electrical engineering. My MS is technically computer science. So initially a lot of the stuff from experience of like EEs as Edison's, coursework wise, everything is learning how a system works. So knowing the circuitry, the hardware. At the time, I was more of like an embedded system student. So I liked the whole software hardware part of the coursework that I took. And you do or will end up in teams that do exactly that, where they're doing controllers, they're doing software, they're doing test scripting. So a lot of my coursework when I went to school was more embedded. It was my circuit classes, my hardware classes, my embedded classes, a lot of the computer programming classes. So the thing is, I'm just like a big mix of a couple things. I would say the most important part between like college and corporate is just communicating and also understanding specifications, which we call requirements here, and just knowing how to translate that into reaching your scope and like trying not to fall outside of that. So as far as recommendations, I would say like if you are more embedded or if you are more EE as far as like hardware, there's always a space for you. Try to focus on those classes. But yeah.
All right, and we have a bit of a software question here from Christy. So would you recommend students pursue Java or C+ tracks with software engineering coursework? I don't know, Kia, you might be the best to answer that one.
Yeah, I would say it depends on what you're doing. So I learned Java when I was in college. Coming into GE, it's a wide variety of things depending on what group you end up in. A lot of groups use C++ because it helps with embedded. My group uses C Sharp just because we do a lot of web and desktop applications. So it really depends kind of what your goal is as far as learning a language. The thing is, what most software engineers will tell you, once you learn one language, most of them look very similar, or you can understand the next ones. So I would say as a software engineer, maybe Java, because it's probably one of the core ones you should learn next to C++ and C Sharp. But depending on what you're going towards as far as like a career, you can do web development, UI, it varies. So my suggestion, I did Java. I like Java. C Sharp looks like Java. So if you want to do more web apps and stuff, maybe C Sharp. But hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Thanks, Kia. All right, looking to the panel who wants to answer this next one. So how can we be part of GE Aerospace Edison program? Also being an international student, how can we begin as an intern co-op? All right, looks like Louisa wants to take that one.
Yeah, I can take that. So we're actively recruiting actually for the Edison program. So we'll be at SWE next week, and then SHEP in the next 2 weeks. So definitely, like, I don't know what year you are, but like conferences are a really, really great way to kind of make your way into the GE Aerospace community. Additionally, for being an international student, it definitely depends, but GE has like international sites all over. So like we have a site in GEIQ, which is in Mexico. We have a site in Italy, in Bangalore. Yeah. Wait, sorry. I'm reading one message from Alyssa. So international students need to have unrestricted work. Okay, yeah. Basically, to be an EDP, usually you need to hold a green card, but definitely like there are opportunities to get into the space. You just usually can't work on unauthorized work, but there's other work that you can work on.
Thank you, Louisa. All right, next one. Being a senior in aerospace engineering and aviation maintenance, how can I begin with interning or beginning with the GE Edison program? So I'm gonna wrap this one because I think Louisa answered some of this already with getting involved with the Edison program, go to the conferences, meet the people, etc. And what I will say, our rules around interning and co-op, you do need to be in a school program. So if you have graduated, you're really looking at our leadership programs at that point. If you're going for a master's, there might be opportunities there while you're still in school from an intern standpoint, but it's all about that network and meeting people at the conferences. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Do you have any tips on non-traditional students that were previously stay-at-home parents? Does anybody want to grab that one? Got some scared panelists here. All right, I'll try to answer that one the best because I've actually met a lot of people who are non-traditional students that have been on the leadership program. So one individual, his name was Sam, he was in the military for 15 years before going to school, getting his bachelor degree, and then joined the Edison program. And he is phenomenal and really took off in his role in engineering. And it's one of those things that we talk about from a diversity of experiences where his background in the military made him a great candidate working here just from an appreciation of the product that we make as well as the leadership skills that he built there. So my best advice is lean into it. If you were stay at home for the first part where people were typically early in their careers, that's okay. That gave you life experience. And it shouldn't hold you back for applying for these programs because we definitely welcome those type of unique experiences here. All right, so next one, are international students able to join roles in GE Aerospace? So again, we answered this one a little bit already where there are international locations that absolutely you can get onto programs at those sites if they're within your region. And if you have unrestricted work access within the US, usually a green card holder or US citizenship will allow you to work at our US based site. So it all depends on your work certifications, visas, etc. that you currently have. Do you always know what industry and job function you wanted to go into after graduation? Who on the panel wants to try to take this one? Yeah, there we go, Molly. Go for it.
So I would say I definitely did not know what I wanted to do. I started college undecided. I eventually decided on industrial engineering because I knew that still kept my options open to what field I wanted to join. And I did a couple internships in college and realized I enjoyed manufacturing, but I didn't really have a specific industry or job function in mind. So I kind of just went into career fairs, started talking to companies and learning about them. That's kind of how I narrowed in on GE. And another big thing that appealed to me was the leadership programs that GE has. They allow you to do different rotations in different roles, and they're shorter periods. So my program, there were year-long roles, 2 different ones. So it allows you to learn about the company, learn about different options for your career before you commit to a more permanent role within the company. So that really made GE appeal to me for that aspect.
That's awesome. Thanks, Molly. Louisa, do you want to give that one a go too?
Yeah, I can say that. So I never had an internship in aerospace actually. And because of that, that's one of the reasons I wanted to come to GE, just to try something new. But I will say the leadership programs are really incredible because you don't have to commit to anything. You get like 2 years to keep trying stuff out. But the like even better part that I learned about when I came to GE was that you really don't have to commit to a role here for like the rest of your life or anything. There's a pretty big push, especially within engineering, that around every 2 to 3 years, if you feel like you want a change in pace, that's usually afforded to you. So like if you're a design engineer and you decide you want to do something completely different, like controls, that's totally possible. All you have to do is make sure that you find the right people to talk to and they'll try to make that happen. So like I think definitely no, I don't know what I want to do. Even though I have a full-time job and I'm sure in 5 years I still won't know what I want to do. But that's one of the great things about the company is you really can just keep jumping from place to place and learning more.
Absolutely, Louisa. I always joke with people, I've been with GE for 21 years. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So totally get that. The one piece of advice that I do want to tack on to that one is it is important to know what you are passionate about and where you want to think long term. One common question we get here at GE all the time is, where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? And it is okay if that changes all the time, but it is great to have at least an understanding of, hey, I'm at this point, and today I think that it would be awesome if I wanted to be a plant leader in the future. I know that was my original goal until I had a business leader role and said, I don't want to do that. So it's okay to change, but having that vision makes it a lot easier for your network to help you in the future in recommending roles and thinking of you for opportunities. So thank you, ladies. I think this next one's going to be really good for Aaliyah. So, what are the resources and communities within the GE Aerospace that support women, especially as a new grad, in terms of career mentorship?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there are a lot of spaces, and I'll kind of start with what's top of mind. So we mentioned our employee resource groups on our last on our first session for this webinar series, and so I just wanted to re-emphasize those. And one of them, we have a women's network, and so for that, I mean, it is geared towards developing and holding that space for women at GE Aerospace. But there's also like different subsections of that ERG too, where there might be like a women in operations or women in technology. I actually, along with two other women at GE Aerospace, created diverse women connecting. It's what our little subgroup is. And so for those who don't feel included necessarily or have previously felt included, also enhancing some partnerships with other ERGs. Say you're a woman and you're Black, or you're a woman and you're a part of our Pride Alliance network. So just like being that bridge there so that you feel like the opportunities there fit you and that's like something that you want to get involved in. So that's like top of mind. So that's, I mean, it's a huge network. It's one of our oldest ones and biggest as well. And so ERGs generally, but obviously kind of going off that informal mentorship part, you can find mentors really anywhere, through your managers, through maybe people on your team, through a volunteering event that you may have participated in and started networking with someone. So the opportunities are really endless. So I'm sure there are other avenues that folks on the call can speak to, but I just wanted to plug our ERGs that we spoke about in the last call.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaliyah. All right, moving to our next one. So from Sarah, looking at your more tenured peers and mentors, do you feel you have opportunities to explore and grow within GE? Who wants to take this one? Any thoughts? All right, Louisa, thank you.
Yeah, so GE actually has like a really great organizational like overview map of like who are our most tenured mentors, and like honestly how to contact them. So we have these things in engineering, at least called CTHs or principal engineers. And one of their main roles is honestly to mentor younger people. And so that's a really great opportunity because it's written into their role description that they have to do that. One of the other really great things, at least about the Edison engineering program, for the engine side at least, is you do 2 years or 1.5 years of classes that are internal to GE. Once a week, you have a class on a different topic, and all of those are taught by our principal or our CTHs, like our principal engineers. So that's just another really great way, especially if you are interested in a topic but aren't necessarily connected to it in your current role, to go meet someone who's been in that role for the past like 10 years because they love it, and like are like are our knowledgers of that, and to be able to like talk to them about like their experience in it, and to learn more about if you want to do it. But I would say that like people at GE are very busy and the engineers are very busy, but we're a very people focused industry because a lot of the stuff that we're doing, like we're very reliant on our people, because if they leave, like they are kind of like the only person that knows it. So it's very important to the company that that knowledge is being spread out as much as possible.
Thanks, Louisa. All right, we have a question here. Any tips on getting back into the workforce at GE after a long career gap? Are the doors open for such? And I do have a note here talking about a program that we have called Take Two Flight, who for those who want to return to the workforce. Unfortunately, I'm not super familiar with it, but I definitely recommend searching the sites, and we can get the information posted out in LinkedIn about Take Two Flight for that type of person. Anybody else have any comments around seeing people come back after gaps in their careers and how that's impacted them? Oh, Alyssa, yes, absolutely, you can talk. I think you're the best one for this too.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm in the background, so so you're not going to see me, but Alyssa Reed and I work in the university recruiting space, and thank you so much for joining this. So absolutely, we have opportunities in this area. Take to Flight is one area that Jen mentioned. It is a program within engineering where, you might have taken 2 or 3 years off, or maybe even a bit longer. And it's a way to almost come back in, not quite as an intern, but have a small, a smaller assignment for you to test and grow, and that will evolve into a longer term full-time position. The other thing, just in general tips, it's funny, I was recently recruiting for somebody on my team, and I've seen gaps in resumes. For me, it's what you did during that time, right? It's not so important to say, oh, I've gone job to job, stayed within aerospace here to there. I took time off to be a mom. I went back to school. I traveled the world. All of those provide an enriching experience. At the end of the day, there are still qualifications to the job, but there's so much more to it than just what's on a resume. So, similar to, I think, Louisa talking about imposter syndrome, go after it. You're awesome. And just remember, when you speak to recruiters, when you connect with people on LinkedIn and you want to learn from them, you also share what you can bring because of the gaps in your resume. So just remember that too.
All right, we're going to do one more question from Slido, and then we have a question to wrap up as we near the end of this. So who from my panel would like to talk about a continuous improvement project that they've been involved in at GE, and what is it and how did it go? Any volunteers for that one? All right, Molly, thank you.
Yeah, so GE is really big on like Kaizen events. We actually just launched a new lean operating system that's internal to GE. So they really push a lot of continuous improvement type projects and events and things like that. So one thing that I got to do while I was in one of my roles on program was serve as the process owner for a Kaizen event that we had. I work in a full engine assembly shop, and so the event was centered around our vertical assembly area for one of our engine lines. It was a less used engine line. There wasn't a lot of volume for many years, and then we were anticipating a big ramp up. So we needed to do a lot of cleaning in the area, organization of tools. So there was a lot of focus around like 5S'ing the area, creating tooling carts that were more accessible for our mechanics, and eliminating some of the walking that the mechanics had to do. So bringing everything that they needed closer to the workstation. So we ended up actually really cleaning up the area, making it a lot easier for our mechanics, and it did end up reducing the cycle time in that workstation. I don't actually remember the numbers, but it was a successful event, and I still work in the shop, and a lot of the improvements that we made are still in place today. So overall successful event.
Awesome. Thanks, Molly. Why don't you take first stab at our last question here, which is, how do you envision the future for women in engineering and supply chain, and how will this shape the future of flight?
Yeah, so I think in engineering and supply chain, obviously you can just look at your colleagues. I think probably all of us can say that they're in the minority being a woman and on the teams that we're in. But looking at, I was a part of MEDP, and seeing the waves of people coming through MEDP, I'm starting to see in the early career programs a lot more women being hired into the company. So I envision that, especially at GE, we'll start to see these early career women progressing through their careers, becoming leaders in the company, and kind of serving as mentors for years to come for the newest early career people in GE. So I think it has a really positive outlook, and I really hope to see a lot of leaders in GE be females in the coming years.
I love it. Me too. Kia, why don't you take the next stab there?
Yeah, so the question regarding software projects or coursework, I would say I get this question a lot from freshmen and sophomores when I do resume workshops, and I would say the coursework is going to teach you the foundations. It's what you take out of the class. And those personal projects are very beneficial to you, especially when you're going for internships, speaking as sophomores and freshmen in college, because once you get to junior and senior year, your coursework gets heavier, you get more class projects. So it's kind of like, where's your curiosity? Do you have a passion for software? Did you want to keep learning? That's kind of the key aspects that it shows us when you do have side projects. Obviously, some students are taking full semesters and don't have time for side projects. This is where having knowledge of the projects you do in class helps, and also understanding, your role and how you express that when you go and do interviews or go to conference and talk about some of your skill sets. So I would say yes and yes, having side projects is definitely beneficial, but also having your coursework and, impactful indicators of like what you did in those classes is also beneficial. So I would say have both, and definitely try to do that on the side learning as well.
Love it. Aaliyah, 30 seconds. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to make it less than that. So in terms of how do I envision the future for women in engineering and supply chain, GE is committed to diversifying our workforce, which includes increasing that representation across, which includes female representation. And so I'm going to end it with robustness. Oh, wait, no, I'm not forgetting. No. Diversity in inputs creates robustness in outputs. So take that.
I
Yes.
love that. That's great. Luisa, final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts are just there's a lot more engineering to do, and GE is really trying to hire a lot of engineers right now. And so there just would not be a future in aerospace without female engineers. And I think, it's going to be really cool to be in a space where it's more 50-50 than it is now.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. I hope everybody here participating enjoyed our panel. I know we're a minute late here, but I do have a wrap slide because this is just the start of what we hope will be your engineering and supply chain career, and maybe it will be with us. This, along with the location of the recording, will be emailed to you after the event. Be on the lookout for an email from either aerospace.earlycareers@ge.com mailbox or an email from GE recruiting team on Phenom in the next 24 hours. In terms of staying engaged with GE Aerospace, we hope you want to. As such, here are a few opportunities to highlight. On the heels of this women-centered webinar is the SWE National Conference. If you're going, we hope you'll consider visiting our booth and engaging with our employees. We also will be heading to SHIP and following SWE and hoping you'll see us there too. While a bit in the distance, we're also gathering interest for those who want to visit us at NSBE in March. Sign up for our booth today. They're filling up quickly, but we still have opportunities for our 2025 internships and co-ops. And for a short time, our full-time EEDP and MEDP jobs are open as well. We have created a learning module that are on demand, and you'll learn about what it's like working at GE Aerospace, and we hope to check them out on your own times. And finally, we have an amazing experience we called LIFT, Leaders Innovating Flight for Tomorrow, that will provide selected students an all expenses paid trip to our Cincinnati, Ohio headquarters next summer to be immersed in our company, culture, and community. If you're interested in inventing the future of flight and wanting to work in an inclusive environment, please consider expressing your interest. Thank you again for joining us today, and thank you to our amazing panel of women engineers, and have a wonderful rest of your day.